And now to some new pictures that have been released by NASA showing our largest planetary neighbor, Jupiter, in unprecedented detail. They've come from the new Super Space Telescope.
For decades, astronomers have scanned the skies not only for planets or radio signals, but for the unexplainable, the tiny cracks in the cosmic order, those rare anomalies that refuse to obey the rules of nature. And now, the James Webb Space Telescope may have found one of the strangest anomalies yet. What began as a routine observation of a faint interstellar object has escalated into one of the most unsettling discoveries in the history of space science. The object is called 3I/ATLAS, the third known interstellar body to pass through our solar system. But this time, what Webb detected wasn't just reflected sunlight bouncing off a chunk of ice or rock. It was something far stranger, something deeply unsettling. Webb found light, artificial light, a glow that no comet, asteroid, or natural body has ever been known to produce. What followed has shaken astrophysicists, defense analysts, and governments alike. Because if the data is true, then 3I/ATLAS may not be a rock at all. It may be technology, a machine, a visitor from somewhere else. And the most chilling part? It seems to know we're watching. 3I/ATLAS first appeared on the edges of the solar system as nothing more than a faint dot moving against the background of stars. At first, astronomers dismissed it as another long-period comet, until they noticed its path. Unlike most comets born in the Oort cloud, which follow elongated loops around the sun, this object's trajectory didn't fit any local orbit. It was clearly interstellar, a traveler from beyond our solar system, just like Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. But almost immediately, 3I/ATLAS set itself apart. It was bright, far too bright for its estimated size. Normally, interstellar objects appear dim until they approach the sun, when ice begins to sublimate and form a cometary tail. 3I/ATLAS, however, shone with a steady, unwavering glow. There were no bursts of gas, no tail of streaming dust, no outgassing jets. Instead, its brightness remained constant, as if powered by something internal. The anomaly triggered a frenzy. Observatories across the globe pivoted to capture images and spectroscopic data, and inevitably, the James Webb Space Telescope, the most powerful eye in the cosmos, was called upon to clarify the mystery. Hopes were high. Webb's infrared sensitivity was designed to cut through cosmic dust and reveal the unseen. Scientists expected it to settle the question, was 3I/ATLAS just an oddly reflective rock? Or was there something stranger going on? Instead of clarity, Webb provided shock. Its first set of data suggested that this was not a simple natural body. The light wasn't reflected sunlight, it was emitted light, and that changed everything. Perched nearly 1,000,000 miles from Earth at the second Lagrange point, the James Webb Space Telescope is humanity's most advanced tool for exploring the universe. Its mission was to peer back in time, to study galaxies forming in the aftermath of the Big Bang. But in early observations of 3I/ATLAS, Webb became something more than a cosmology instrument. It became a witness to something deeply unnatural. The telescope's instruments detected a centralized thermal emission coming directly from the object's core. Normally, comets shine because sunlight reflects off dust and ice, scattering in predictable patterns. But in this case, the radiation didn't scatter. It radiated outward like heat from a powered source. Even more unsettling, the thermal mapping didn't follow the normal bell curve distribution expected from natural bodies. Instead, it pulsed faintly, irregularly. The emissions cycled, as though something inside the object was turning on and off. Theories poured in. Some suggested radioactive decay of exotic isotopes. Others proposed internal friction or trapped energy from formation. But as more data arrived, every natural explanation collapsed under the weight of evidence. The emission wasn't random, nor chaotic. It was patterned. Webb's instruments showed that the object emitted light in a narrow spectrum band, not the broad spread of natural reflection. This is precisely what human engineers do when they build LED arrays, laser beacons, and communication systems. On Earth, this kind of light is artificial by definition, and now it seemed the same was true in space. The conclusion chilled astronomers. This wasn't passive reflection, it was an active emission. Something inside 3I/ATLAS was generating light deliberately. As word spread through scientific circles, whispers began, first in private emails, then in encrypted channels between agencies. A word that no one wanted to write down, but everyone was thinking: powered. Because if 3I/ATLAS wasn't simply drifting, but running on some form of internal energy source, then we weren't looking at a comet or asteroid at all. We were looking at something designed, something built. As more data from Webb, Hubble, and terrestrial observatories poured in, a clearer profile of 3I/ATLAS began to emerge, and it looked nothing like any natural celestial body ever studied. First came its trajectory. Natural interstellar objects typically tumble through the solar system in chaotic paths, their motion dictated purely by gravity. But 3I/ATLAS seemed to be doing something else entirely. Its course was unusually precise, threading past gravitational wells as though it were correcting itself, slipping around planets and asteroids with a precision no drifting rock could manage. Then came its rotation. Most objects of its size spin irregularly, tumbling like a football in space. But 3I/ATLAS rotated with a stability that defied expectation. No inertial drift, no wobble. Its motion looked controlled. The absence of a cometary tail raised further suspicion. Even as it passed closer to the sun, there was no sign of gas venting into space, no plume of dust, no chemical trail. It was as if the object was shielded, a casing or shell protecting it from solar heating. But the most damning evidence came from its surface reflectivity, or albedo. Instruments measured reflectivity approaching that of polished metal in certain regions. Not ice, not rock, metal. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder. Within NASA and ESA channels, words like probe, beacon, and artifact began appearing. No one dared say spacecraft out loud in official memos, but the implication was impossible to ignore. And then came the photometric analysis, the study of the light itself. Unlike natural sunlight scattering across ice, the emissions from 3I/ATLAS were concentrated in a narrow spectrum band. This is exactly what happens when light is deliberately engineered, as in LED panels or laser systems. Even more chilling, the light pulsed, not randomly, but intermittently, with intervals that looked disturbingly like a system regulating itself. It was at this point that the astronomical community crossed a line it could never uncross. 3I/ATLAS wasn't just a cosmic curiosity, it was behaving like technology. And if it was technology, then humanity had just stumbled across something that was never meant to look natural. With suspicion mounting, teams at MIT and Harvard decided to go deeper. They pulled every electromagnetic reading Webb had collected on 3I/ATLAS and began running advanced analyses, searching for patterns buried in the static. At first, it looked like random noise, just scattered frequencies across the spectrum, as you'd expect from a faint object reflecting sunlight. But when the team applied Fourier transforms, mathematical tools used to isolate repeating cycles, something extraordinary emerged. Within the chaos was a structured repeating pulse, too precise to be natural, too organized to be random. It wasn't human binary, nor any known modulation technique, but it carried the fingerprint of intentional encoding. Theorists scrambled to explain. Could this be a beacon transmitting a simple "I am here" signal, or telemetry, data sent back to wherever this object came from? One chilling possibility arose. Perhaps the signal wasn't for us at all. Perhaps it was meant for something or someone else. What unsettled researchers most was its consistency. Since Webb first observed it, the encoded pulse hadn't changed once. It repeated like clockwork, as though carrying out a mission. If it was communicating, it wasn't adapting to us. It was waiting for its intended receiver. Leaked documents revealed NASA and other agencies were already coordinating behind the scenes. The language was cautious, but urgent. Some scientists argued the object was harmless, an ancient probe drifting through the galaxy, following a pre-programmed path. Others weren't so hopeful. If it was transmitting, then someone somewhere was listening. And if it could emit controlled light, what else could it do? Even governments began to worry. A classified European Space Agency report raised questions nobody wanted to answer. If this is powered, does it have propulsion? If it has propulsion, does it have control? And if it has control, why is it here? What was once an academic mystery had transformed into a geopolitical concern. Nations weren't just watching a rock, they were watching an active, deliberate presence. The next breakthrough came not from the light itself, but from the way it behaved. scientists noticed that the luminosity of 3I/ATLAS seemed to rise and fall in sync with its distance to the Sun. It didn't flare like a comet releasing gas. Instead, its emissions shifted subtly, almost like a machine adjusting to absorb energy. The hypothesis was radical. 3I/ATLAS might be harvesting solar power. A team of astrophysicists proposed that beneath its metallic shell, the object could house a solar collection array or some form of photonic absorption system. In other words, it might be recharging itself as it traveled from star to star. Supporting this theory was the faint cloud of dust surrounding it. At first, scientists assumed this was natural debris, but new models suggested it could serve a dual purpose. Both camouflage, disguising its artificial structure, and energy absorption, trapping radiation and funneling it inward. If true, then 3I/ATLAS wasn't a dead relic. It was a self-sustaining craft, designed to survive for centuries or even millennia. It could lie dormant between stars, awaken near a sun, refuel, and then continue its journey. This concept aligned with long-standing theoretical models of interstellar probes, machines sent not to make direct contact, but to observe and report, quietly cataloging civilizations from the shadows. And if our solar system triggered its activation, then a chilling implication followed. The message had already been sent. Somewhere, far across the galaxy, whoever built this object may now know that we exist. For scientists, this realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. Humanity had long dreamed of proof we weren't alone, but to find out this way, through a silent machine drifting at the edge of our home, forced us to confront a darker possibility. We hadn't found them, they had found us. Just when astronomers thought they had mapped out 3I/ATLAS's strange behavior, something happened that defied every explanation. In the early hours of a quiet observing window, Webb captured a sudden flare. The brightness of the object spiked by nearly 40% in under 2 minutes. This wasn't a gradual increase caused by solar proximity. It wasn't a comet venting gas. It was instantaneous, sharp, and deliberate, like someone flipping a switch. Ground-based telescopes in Hawaii and Chile confirmed the event in real time. For the first time since its discovery, 3I/ATLAS wasn't simply steady. It had changed state. The flare didn't just brighten the object, it altered its thermal signature. Spectrographs showed that the heat distribution across the surface shifted from faint and centralized to broad and active, almost as though dormant systems had powered on. The implications rippled through the scientific community like a shockwave. If this was a machine, then it had just awakened. And then came the second anomaly, perhaps the most disturbing of all. When recalculating the object's trajectory after the flare, multiple space agencies noticed a shift. Tiny, but measurable. Gravity alone couldn't explain it, nor could radiation pressure from the sun. The math didn't work, unless, of course, the object had maneuvered. It wasn't just drifting anymore. It had changed lanes, adjusting closer to the plane of Earth's orbit. The debate inside scientific circles grew intense. Some insisted it was coincidence, a quirk of measurement. Others weren't so sure. If 3I/ATLAS had propulsion, even limited, it meant intention. It meant someone, somewhere, had designed it to move when needed. Even more troubling was the timing. The flare occurred not long after Webb's instruments had been locked on it for weeks. Had our observation triggered the change? Or was it always programmed to awaken once inside a certain radius of the sun? If the flare was deliberate, then it wasn't random data. It was a signal, a display meant to be noticed. And for the first time, humanity had to face the possibility that we weren't the observers. We were the ones being watched. As the dust of speculation settles, one truth refuses to go away. 3I/ATLAS was never just a rock. Every piece of evidence and the unnatural glow, the encoded pulses, the metallic surface, the sudden flare, and the measurable trajectory shift points to a single conclusion. This object is not natural. It is not a comet. It is not a chunk of frozen debris from deep space. It is something else, something built. And that forces us to confront a terrifying thought. The James Webb Space Telescope, designed to look back in time and reveal the birth of galaxies, may have instead caught a glimpse of something designed to look back at us. The silence from space agencies only deepens the unease. NASA has gone quiet. ESA speaks vaguely of instrument recalibration. Independent observatories continue to release fragments of raw data, but they're drowned in waves of disinformation. The narrative is no longer just scientific. It is strategic, classified, controlled. What if 3I/ATLAS is not a visitor by chance, but by design? What if its mission isn't contact, but surveillance? What if we were never meant to know until now? Perhaps it's nothing more than a relic, a machine sent centuries ago, endlessly wandering. Or perhaps it's a scout, its awakening flare, a simple message back to its creators. This star has life. This planet has watchers. And if that's true, then somewhere, in the cold expanse of the galaxy, someone may already know we exist. We have long asked if we are alone in the universe. Now, staring at the steady artificial light of 3I/ATLAS, the question may not be whether we are alone, but whether we were ever meant to believe we were. The countdown may already have begun. Not a countdown to invasion or destruction, but to realization. The moment when we finally understand that humanity is not the center of the story, but part of a larger narrative written long before we learned to read the stars. We thought we were watching 3I/ATLAS, but perhaps all along it was watching us.